Every lap a driver completes, every pit stop they make, every tire they choose, none of it happens by accident. While the pilot battles at 200 miles per hour, another team is fighting an invisible war from the garage wall. Today, we're stepping inside the mind of a Formula One strategist to uncover how they read data, predict the unpredictable, and make split-second calls that can define an entire Grand Prix. Because in modern F1, the championship isn't won on the track alone. It's won right here in the strategy war room. The difference between first place and fifth place often comes down to a single decision made by someone you never see on the podium. A strategist might call a pit stop 2 laps earlier than anyone expected, and suddenly their driver gains track position, or they might hold firm when everyone else is pitting, gambling that a safety car will come, and it does. These aren't lucky guesses. They're calculated decisions built on mountains of data. Tire degradation curves, fuel consumption rates, weather patterns, competitor radio frequencies, and real-time lap time analysis. In the modern Formula One era, where the cars are so evenly matched and rule changes come every season, strategy has become the great equalizer. A smaller team with a brilliant strategist can outthink a bigger rival. And when you're racing for championships worth hundreds of millions of dollars, every tenth of a second matters, especially the ones that don't even happen on track. So how does a strategist actually think when the lights go out? Let's walk through a race weekend from their perspective, because it starts long before Sunday afternoon. Friday morning, before a single lap is even completed, the strategist is studying the circuit itself. They're looking at corners, elevation changes, and most importantly, how those corners demand different things from the tires. See, on a tight, twisty track like Monaco, the tires degrade quickly because the car is constantly turning, constantly scrubbing heat and rubber off the surface. But on a high-speed circuit like Monza, where drivers are flat out for longer, the tires don't heat up in the same way. Instead, they fade from pure speed and aerodynamic load. The strategist builds a mental map of how long each tire compound can last here. Can the soft tire last 20 laps, or just 15? How much faster is it really compared to the medium? These aren't opinions, they're mathematical relationships built from years of data. Then come the weather patterns. They're studying satellite images, wind speed at different altitudes, track temperature forecasts. Why does this matter? Because a wet track changes everything. Tire strategy becomes fluid, literally. Grip disappears, and suddenly a pit stop that was planned for lap 40 might happen on lap 20. Saturday, they watch qualifying. But here's where the strategist's brain works differently than a fan's. While everyone's looking at who set pole position, the strategist is analyzing fuel loads. They're thinking, this driver ran a light fuel load to go fast. Tomorrow in the race, when they're heavier, how will they pace change? They're also tracking the gap between first and 10th on the grid, studying how the tires performed on different fuel weights and starting to build what we might call a race simulation. By Sunday morning, the strategist has built dozens of scenarios. They've modeled what happens if their driver starts on the soft tire versus the medium. They've calculated pit stop windows, those crucial moments when it makes sense to stop. Here's the thing, a pit stop takes about 2 seconds in modern F1. But the lap before it, the driver might be crawling because the tires are destroyed. Then they pit, emerge on fresh rubber, and suddenly they're 3 seconds a lap faster. So the strategist is asking, when is the pain of those slow laps worth it? As the race unfolds, the strategist is watching tire age like a hawk. They've got live telemetry, data flowing from the car showing tire temperature, brake temperature, fuel consumption every tenth of a second. They're comparing that against their pre-race model. Tire degradation is 1/10 faster than we predicted. Our driver can go longer. Or, the tires are falling off a cliff. We need to box now. But they're also watching every other car on track. How are the rivals' tires aging? What fuel loads did they actually take? And crucially, what are their competitors talking about on the radio? Teams monitor competitor frequencies, picking up clues about strategy. Is that championship leading car telling their pit wall they're struggling with rear degradation? Then maybe the strategist just found their window, a moment where they're strong and the rival is weak. It's a three-dimensional chess game played at 200 miles per hour, and the strategist is thinking 5 moves ahead while constantly adapting to what actually happens on track. Let me show you how this plays out in the real world, because history is full of moments where strategy made all the difference. Take the 2016 British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Lewis Hamilton was leading, but his tyres were aging faster than expected in the heat and the bumpy track. Mercedes made a bold call: pit him early, give him fresh rubber, and let him attack while others were still struggling on worn tyres. It worked. Hamilton drove away from the field and won. But here's the thing. If the pit stop went wrong by half a second, or if the undercut didn't work, he'd have lost the race. The strategist had to trust their data and their driver. Now jump to 2018, the championship fight between Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. At Monza, one race, one pit stop changed everything. Vettel was leading late in the race. Ferrari decided to leave him out longer than Hamilton, betting that Vettel's tyres would hold and that Hamilton's fresh tyres wouldn't be enough to catch him in the remaining laps. They were wrong. Hamilton hunted Vettel down and passed him. That single strategic decision rippled through the entire season. Momentum, confidence, points on the board, small margins, massive consequences. And then there's 2021, Abu Dhabi, the most dramatic championship finale in Formula One history. Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton were level on points going into the final race. For most of that day, Hamilton controlled it. But as the race neared its end, both drivers were on aging tyres and a safety car was called. The strategists had seconds to decide: do we pit our driver and gamble on fresh rubber for a restart, or do we stay out? Red Bull pitted Verstappen. Mercedes kept Hamilton out. That call, made in a heartbeat based on years of experience and data analysis, set up the final lap that decided a championship. These aren't just pit stop decisions, they're moments where the strategist's ability to read a race, trust the numbers, and feel the moment separates winning from losing. And it all comes down to one thing: having better information than your opponent and the courage to act on it. But what if Mercedes had made a different call that night in Abu Dhabi? What if they'd pitted Hamilton too, matching Red Bull's gamble with equal stakes? In theory, both drivers would have had fresh tyres, the same machinery, the same final lap, and the outcome would have been decided purely by driver skill in that moment. The strategist's hand would have been removed from the equation entirely. It's a fascinating thought experiment, because it reveals something crucial about modern Formula One. The strategy team doesn't exist to replace the driver's talent. It exists to amplify it, to give their champion the best possible foundation to work with. When you pit or stay out, when you switch compounds, when you position yourself in the race, these aren't decisions that guarantee victory. They're calculated bets that shift the probabilities in your favor. A strategist in 2024 isn't playing checkers while everyone else plays chess. They're playing a different game entirely, reading incomplete information, trusting patterns they've seen before, and placing their driver in positions where raw speed and racecraft can shine. That's the real art of strategy, not controlling the race, but controlling the odds. So here's what we've learned today. Strategy in Formula One is about 3 things: data, instinct, and trust. First, those engineers and strategists are reading a race in real time. Thousands of data points flowing in every second, turning raw information into split-second calls that can make or break a championship. Second, they're not trying to outsmart the sport. They're trying to give their driver the cleanest path to victory, knowing that no decision guarantees anything. And third, strategy in 2024 has become something almost invisible. It's so integrated into every team's operation that we only notice it when something goes spectacularly right or wrong. Now we want to hear from you. What aspect of F1 strategy should we explore next? The tire wars, pit stop choreography, the psychology of team radio calls? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you want more stories from inside the paddock, from the drivers' heads to the strategists' minds, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode.